Hi everyone, this is the Warbird Mistress, and welcome back to the hangar for a little follow-up to that debut video on the Curtiss SBC Helldiver. Some have noticed that I said there were 257 manufactured and 207 that saw American service, and yet it was only with American forces that it ever served. So what about the other 50? Well, therein lies the rub and a chance to tell one of the more curious stories of World War II. To follow the trail of these 50 Helldivers, allow me to introduce Aroostook County's Houlton, Maine. At the heart of America's share of l'Acadie, the scenic burg is known for its rustic touches and back-home flavor. However, those tractors weren't always just for potatoes and parades. Let's go back to 1940, when America was selling materiel to the Allies under the cash and carry plan, and the Anglo-French Purchasing Board, later the British Purchasing Commission, was traveling through America buying aircraft. Under these agreements, Britain and France bought over 24 designs, including the Curtiss 75 and the P-40, the North American Mustang, and the Martin Baltimore. Now, cash and carry replaced the lapsed Neutrality Act of 1937. The only change was that military equipment could now be purchased by belligerents, who then assumed all risks of transportation, such as these Lockheed Super Electras being ferried through U-boat-infested waters of the North Atlantic. America was still neutral, and thus forbidden to ferry aircraft to belligerent nations, including the lovely, alluring, and beautiful Dominion of Canada. Not that I'm biased. So enter Houlton's little part in the war. A quiet market town with a customs station and plenty of farmland, she also had Houlton Army Air Force Base. Soon the base would be overfilled with American-manufactured warplanes destined abroad. Or at least next door. Rolled next door. Literally. The airbase was right on the border across from Woodstock, New Brunswick, just where it still is to this day. Now the aircraft could not have been flown into Canada, but they could be pushed, pulled, or dragged by tractor. And there's our little Helldiver, pulled by a Houlton Pratty farmer's tractor. Painted in the camouflage scheme of Aéronavale, and with her guns replaced by 7.7mm downed machine guns, this was part of France's order for 50 SBC-4 Helldivers. These are the 50 that did not serve in the United States. So, to where were they headed? Well, the best province in Canada of all of them, Nova Scotia. Again, not that I'm biased. They were flown to RCAF Dartmouth. And yes, that's the Dartmouth most famous to non-blue nosers as the setting of Trailer Park Boys. Well, the only trailers then there belonged to His Majesty. Dartmouth Shoreline on Halifax Harbor hosted this base, originally built by the United States in the Great War, where today would be Eastern Passage and the now closed CFB Shearwater, as RCAF Dartmouth was known after the war. The base had grown tremendously, and it was here that the French Curtiss Helldivers, together with 25 Stinson model HW-75s, the L5 in American service, 17 Curtiss H-75A1s, also known as the P-36, and 6 Belgian-purchased Brewster F-2A2 Buffaloes, were loaded aboard the carrier Béarn and the light cruiser Jeanne d'Arc. The latter carried 8 of the Stinsons and 6 Curtiss Hawks, all in crates. The Béarn had been trusted with France's gold reserves, and had departed from Toulon in 1940, going first to Brest to take on the Émile Bertin and Jeanne d'Arc as escorts, before sailing to Canada. As France fell and the armistice was signed before the ships could return, they diverted, sans gold but with aircraft, to Martinique in the French Caribbean. Now this may seem like a minor delay. Unload the ships, assemble the aircraft, and fly them off on behalf of Liberté, Égalité, and Fraternité. Except that the mottos being posted by Martinique's governor, Amiral Georges Robert, was the French states of work, family, and fatherland. The sailors had voted to go to a Vichy territory. Now remember, these are French sailors and naval officers. They had heard, while on Canadian soil, of their country's surrender and Operation Catapult, the British strike at the French Navy in Algeria on the 3rd of July, only 2 weeks after France's collapse. The preemptive strike was made despite Amiral François Dalland's promise that the French Navy would not be under Axis control. A lack of British confidence and fear of Germany and Italy gaining the second-largest capital ship force in Europe led to the strike that cost a shocked France 2 battleships damaged, 3 destroyers damaged, harbor facilities ruined, smaller ships damaged and sunk, and the battleship Bretagne, which fell to the guns of the Hood, Resolution, and Valiant. The crew of the Béarn was certainly thinking of those 1,297 French sailors slaughtered by their alleged ally when deciding to join Amiral Robert rather than go to Britain or turn back to Canada, a dominion still very much in the war and seen as equally perfidious. With Germany having occupied Brest, return to France without having to pass by Gibraltar, firmly held by the British as always, was impossible. The French fleet at Toulon and the damaged harbor of Mers el-Kebir were not options, and Rabat in French Morocco was well within range of British air and naval forces. Fearing interception by the British and not wanting to surrender, they decided to sail for Martinique. Now in Martinique, the Béarn had no real place to go as the United States pushed for her to be demilitarized, Britain kept a close eye on her from the nearby islands, and there were no proper facilities to even harbor the ship. She rusted as her aircraft were brought ashore to do exactly the same. None of these aircraft would do anything other than mold over and rot in the tropical heat. The French never put their 45 Helldivers to use, nor did Belgium get their Buffaloes, shown here destroyed by neglect and the power of the elements. Now, 45 Helldivers. But I said 50 when I started, no? Well, 5 couldn't fit on the French ships, so they defaulted to become RAF assets. Renamed the Cleveland and shipped to England, where they were given to No. 24 Squadron at RAF Hendon, the RAF had no real use for them. The 5 examples were flown from time to time, but primarily were used as ground trainers. And what about Houlton, that quiet town in Maine where we started? Well, the airbase grew, and the Civil Air Patrol was active out of Houlton Army Airfield as well. There was also a prisoner of war camp for Germans who passed the time like every other kid in the Comte d'Arustuk. Those potatoes don't harvest themselves. Well, thank you for watching again, and remember to like and follow the Warbird Mistress on Facebook. You could tune in also on YouTube, and remember to hit subscribe and the bell so you get all the announcements there. You should also take a look at the Patreon page, and patrons on there, as the project grows, will be able to access exclusive content and interactive content, which would not be available here on Facebook, or if you're watching this on YouTube, on YouTube. But thanks for all the support, and I hope to continue this project. This is Claire, and I am the Warbird Mistress. Take care.